Man, so it's interesting, I guess, is kind of a way to jump into it, that I'm catching up with you in New York. I don't know. I would imagine you have some interesting memories of early times that you first came to the States in general. Was it music that first brought you to the States, or were you traveling a lot when you were younger?
No, when I was younger, I was traveling in Europe, mainly England, because part of my family is living in England. But the first time I came to America was for the shooting of the Music Sounds Better With You Stardust video. So it was in 1998. And then I started to DJ in 2005. And I started to travel to USA for DJ gigs. So I've had several working visa, but most of the time, shame on me, when I travel for DJ gigs, I just stay in my hotel, and I'm not very good at visiting cities, but 1 month ago, I came to New York with a friend of mine, and she pushed me to visit the city, quite intensively, and I enjoyed it a lot. So I'm back 1 month later, right now, and I really enjoy New York. So I feel like I'm going to come back very often.
That's so interesting. So just in general, throughout your career, have you kind of been a bit more just focused that way? Because I think, when an artist gets success and starts traveling the world and playing shows and all of this, there's lots of different ways people operate in. Some people go crazy and they're trying to, wring the last little bits out of every moment. And some people need to really protect their energy and kind of keep everything around them as calm as possible, because it's sort of an intense way to live. I would imagine maybe you fall a little towards that second one.
Yeah, the second option is the one for me. I'm making music since 25 years now.
Yeah.
And I try to stay as quiet and calm as possible. However, during nightlife and gigs, sometimes it's nightlife, so I drink a bit of gin and tonic before I play to relax a bit, and so this is my only time of nightlife. But otherwise, I'm coming back home, and then I'm working in my studio. My studio is a home studio in my home, and so my life is divided in two very different fields. Producing music at home and traveling for DJ gigs. That's it.
That makes total sense. I think it's good to have that kind of separation and definition in a long career. It makes me want to ask you, because you mentioned too, you were in New York in the late 90s making the video for Music Sounds Better With You. But then you said that you didn't start DJing till, years after that, the mid 2000s. What is your relationship to performing in general? Is that something that, as you sort of made music and the music became successful, you sort of had to figure out how you felt about it? Is it something you've always wanted to do? Is it something you have issues with? What is your relationship to it in general?
So just a detail, the shooting of the video, it was in Los Angeles. It was not in New York. And I discovered New York later. So about DJing, I started to DJ probably in 2005 or 2006 because a friend of mine pushed me to do it. My natural feeling about DJing is that I should not do it. I'm a shy guy. I have some sort of anxiety in public and places like clubs, and especially when I am going on stage. So it's not my natural It's not my natural movement to go on stage. And but a friend of mine told me, Alain, you have to do it. So I learned how to do it. I started. I was quite scared at the beginning, but I learned, and now I love it. I mean, when I'm on stage and I have to do my set, so most of the time it's 90 minutes or 2 hours, I love it. As soon as I start to play, I feel better. The anxiety is off, and I just love it.
I relate to a lot of parts of that, and it makes me think about, this is something I've talked about on this show before. So, but let me ask you, because I think everyone's answer is a little different. Do you feel like this career in music that you've had up until this point, all the things in it, has it changed who you are as a person? Has it made you grow in certain ways that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise? For me, the example was that I grew up in the Midwest in Minnesota, and it was a nice, great childhood, all that, but it was kind of self-contained, and I was around a lot of the same kinds of people, and my world wasn't that big, you know? And then music, once I started doing it and traveling and meeting all these people from all these different walks of life and cultures, it really, really changed the way my brain works. I think it made me, in general, a much better person. And hearing you talk about, you know, people pushing you to get on stage, that kind of thing. Do you think in general, like the music career has had some effect on, you know, your life growth?
I think it had all kinds of effects, positive effects, negative effects. The positive effects globally on a long-term prospect is to learn to be resilient and never giving up. Because in music business, sometimes, I mean, it's just ups and downs.
Yeah.
Years after years. So the problem are not the ups, the problems are the downs. So, and the downs can be long. It can last for 1 year, 2 years, where you have no inspiration, or you're not happy with what you do, or you're working too much for a poor result. And the music business learned me to commit and to do the job, whatever the circumstances are. So this is a positive aspect. The negative aspect is it's related to touring. When you start to tour a lot, and you have jet lags, poor food, poor sleep, etc., etc. I mean, all these combined. I mean, if it's just 1 gig per month, it's okay. But sometimes when you're doing too much gig years after years, it's not good for your health. Can be okay if you are super serious and you make sports, you eat healthy food, and you're very serious about it, which is not my case. So at one point you can be sometimes very tired. But that's the negative aspect. Globally, the positive aspect, and I realize it more and more, is I'm so happy to be part of this community of people who are committed to music. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the style of music. It could be dance music or pop or country music or whatever. We all have the same commitment, and in a way, we understand each other because we know how hard it can be sometimes. And I'm so happy to meet people who do the same job as mine. So I feel better and better about this. I feel this is the place I belong, in fact, this business.
Man, I relate to that. And there's something in what you just said of finding a place that you belong. And it's funny too. I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, you said that this is something you realize more and more as time goes on. Did you always feel called to music? Was music always the thing for you?
I think so, yeah, because I started to make music when I was a kid. I started playing cello for 10 years, and then I played clarinet. So music has always been a part of me since I was 6 years old. But it took me a very long time to accept and to realize that music should be my job and my life. I've tried to go to university, and I failed completely. But by the age of 25, I suddenly realized that I was interested in music since I was a kid, and maybe that was my what I should do. So I took a chance in the music business, and as soon as I started to work for music, I realized that my capacity of work was huge, and I could work like 12 or 14, 15 hours nonstop on a track. Whereas when I was at university studying history, for me, working 2 hours was like torture.
Right.
It was not my place. So as soon as you find an activity where you can commit and work 12 hours a day, I think, yeah, it's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you still able to do that with music these days? Have you been able to sort of keep that spark alive?
Yes. It's a balance between what I would call training work. Like sometimes you're in the studio and you're not working on something specific. You're just training or searching tricks with a modular synth or whatever. And by the way, this is most of the time when the best things happen, when there is no agenda in mind and you are just playing with your instrument. So, and sometimes I'm playing, I have to finish a track. I'm late. So suddenly I realize that I have to work like non-stop for 12 hours. And the other day, same until it's finished. So yeah, but it's a good point. What I've changed now, because I'm a bit old now, I'm 52 years old. I'm not working on a night time. Before, when I was like 35, I was working sometime from 9 p.m. till 6 a.m.
Right.
For months. And it's a bit dangerous because it disconnects yourself from the real world. And on a long-term prospect, it's not very good. So I'm working a lot, but during daytime.
Me too. It's kind of changed over the years as well. I think for anyone, you kind of have to at a certain point in order to feel like you're living in the real world as well. You know?
It's just for very simple things of life, like waking up at 7. I mean, I love to have a coffee at the bar in the city. I'm living in a small city, so it's very simple things of the daily life. So waking up early, bringing your kids to school. I mean, it's good to do these things. It's healthy, and then you're working all day, and sometimes an extra time in the evening, like from 8 p.m. until 11 p.m.
Right. Yeah. There's something about that I think you start to, on a long enough timeline, you start to want to relate to sort of a more normal, quote unquote, life. And yeah. I think, just being in the world the way that a lot of other people are in the world, there's something about that that's healthy and good for your brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it also makes me, talking about being a part of different communities and the musician community and reflecting back on that. I think that maybe is a good way to talk about the Uppercuts album that you re-released recently with, a bunch of remastered songs and remixes and new tracks and all of that. Does looking back on the work that you did over all of those years, once it's sort of, recollected and you're revisiting it and remembering where you were when you wrote those songs and going back into the projects and playing with the stems and all of that, do you feel differently about the music now when you look back on it versus, when you were sort of in it, making it the first time around?
I feel a bit nostalgic. For two reasons. Because when most of these tracks were done, it was like 20 years ago. Most of these tracks, 50% of the tracks on the compilation are co-produced and co-written with Printworks. We had a lot of fun doing this, but most important, I think we we didn't knew exactly what we were doing. We were just having fun. There was no concept in our minds or whatever. So the point of satisfaction is to realize, I mean, it's a bit presumptuous to talk like that, but to realize that 20 years later, some of these tracks are still relevant. The other aspect when I listen to this song is because most of these songs have been recorded using hardware with no computer at all. It's to realize how the world has changed in 20 years in terms of technology. Should it be for the making of music or in our daily life? It's a bit like the world has drastically changed. So this is what pops up to my mind when I'm listening to these tracks.
Yeah, it's incredible how much has changed, and it makes me think about too, sort of what does and what does not survive through different eras. Like you were talking about, I think a lot of those tracks, and I'll say it so you don't have to, but I think they're still very relevant and still, very influential and fresh sounding. There's a lot of cool stuff going on with those tracks. And that's not true for everything. And I wonder if part of that appeal, aside from the fact that you're very good at what you do and you guys were onto something, is that I think there's something, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, something to the French approach to dance music, the French house sound, the French touch sound, whatever you want to call it, that I think looks back as a way to look forward, as opposed to sort of referencing something in a surface level way. It's more of honoring music and art and sounds and styles that have come before and somehow bringing them with you. I don't know. Do you know what I'm talking about at all? Does that resonate?
My theory about French music, I mean, it's a bit complex because globally here your question is maybe about what we call French house music. But French dance music started quite a long time ago with disco music. So in the 70s, we've had a lot of very successful disco producers and artists, performers, French, during the 70s and the 80s. So it's a long story. Then arrived the dance music under the form of techno, and then French house, what we call French house. For the generation of people like me, Pedro, Daft Punk, and maybe Justice as well, I think there is a common factor for all of us. My theory is the following: when we were kids, like 7, 8 years old, on French TV, the music for cartoons, all the night news, the music at the beginning of the news, it was very good music made by talentuous composer and producers. And this music was using all the analog synthesizer. I mean, it was in the 70s, 80s, and it was using all the analog synthesizer arriving on the market at this specific time. And all these guys making the music for cartoons were making amazing music with amazing new instruments. And we listened to this music as kids. And I think it entered our ears and our brain forever. Then, a bit later, when we were something like 13 years old or 14 years old, we discovered hip-hop from America with bands like Public Enemy or De La Soul or Tribe Called Quest. This entered our ears, our brains too. And I think a bit later, we made a mix like we were when we were 17, 18 years old. We mixed this in our mind. It delivered under the form of French house. Because if you think of French house, the way French house was made in the early mid 90s, late 90s, it was made using the same tools as hip hop. So using instruments like the Ensoniq SR10, the EMU SP1200, and it's a sample based music. So French house to me is the same as hip hop instrumentals. The only difference is that it goes faster. The BPM, the speed is faster. Hip hop is probably from 80 to 110, and house music is from let's say from 110 to 130 BPM. So it just goes faster. But the way it's done, thought and produced is really similar. So
that's so interesting. It's not to cut you off, but it just made me think about, would you agree? I think hip hop from that time, especially talking about something like Public Enemy, and then thinking about something like French house, I now see totally the connection that you're making, and that makes a lot of sense. To me, maybe one of the differences is, I think French house, there's a lot of space in a lot of those tracks, if that makes sense, where I think something like Public Enemy, the Bomb Squad, it's all loop based, and it's, like you said, coming from the same technology, but that seems like maximal to me, and sort of in your face, whereas French house is sort of a bit more stripped back.
Yeah, this is why I think De La Soul or A Tribe Called Quest would be a better reference. Because yes, indeed, Public Enemy is very massive in terms of sample usage. It's like a wall of sound. And
yeah, although I guess if you look at somebody like Justice, you could draw those parallels maybe to Public Enemy a bit.
That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah.
If you had to make a parallel between Public Enemy with a French artist, it could be Justice, because then suddenly there is much more aggressivity and much more energy. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Was there any, for you specifically, was there any rock influence as well? Because especially even with the new music you've been making with DJ Falcon, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there's maybe some soft rock influences as well.
There is now some rock influence in me, but when I started making music in the 90s, there was not at all. But more and more, I love rock and roll. It's weird. So the older I get, the more I love rock and roll. And it's weird, but I played with my cousin DJ Falcon. We played at this big party, the 20th birthday of Ed Banger at Printworks in London. It was a huge party, and at one point I played a song from Pixies calling Debaser, which is not dance music at all.
Right.
But it works. It works because it's just energy. And at one point in a club, you can drop any kind of energy. So there is now a lot of rock influence in my hair, but not at the beginning.
That's fun too, though, right? I think as a musician, as somebody who just loves music in this community, it's kind of fun later in life to realize that there's this whole other unexplored world that's been happening the whole time that you can dive into.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, for me, the connection with rock and roll is it starts with drums, because I'm obsessed with drums and how drums are produced and mixed. And so there are a lot of interesting drums patterns and loops in the rock and roll.
Yeah, of course. And through the eras, the production on rock records too is, I think, really, it's interesting on its own. But then when you bring it into the context of the music you make, then you can get some really interesting combinations.
Yeah. There is something to explore there, I think.
Well, tell me about that Ed Banger party, the 20 years party that you did in Printworks. As long as you brought it up, have you had moments like that, other moments where everybody kind of comes together and you can all sort of realize, again, it's, I guess, back to this community idea of like, look at where we are and how far we've come and, who's still around. Have you been able to have those moments of reflection? Because I think, again, I won't make you say it, but I think your music has been so influential over the years to a lot of people. And I think the scene and your sort of immediate family of artists and friends, hugely influential to generations of producers and DJs and all of that. Are you able to sort of take that in at points like that?
Sometimes when you play in a club or in a festival, you meet artists that you know or that you meet for the first time, but that you respect and listen since a long time. So it happened to me already. To be super happy to be at a specific gig because I had the chance to meet Justice or somebody, and we are happy to talk. But what was specific at Printworks is we were all on stage. I mean, how to explain? There was the main room, the stage, and there was a small stage behind the decks. The smaller dance floor behind the decks was full of people from the industry and artists, and when we were there were so many people that I love and respect. I mean, it was very moving. We were all there together with just good intentions to play good music for this crowd, and we all knew that we were doing this for since a long time. And that was really a good vibe. It was really moving. It took me like three days to get down and to relax. Not to relax, but to
come down off of the high a little bit.
And what was good, I mean, it was not in a huge stadium, like with 50,000 people. It was Printworks, so it's a very big club. I don't know how many people in the club, maybe 7,000. So it was still underground, We were still in the underground side of music. But at this point, what Pedro did was really strong. He managed to gather different artists and put them on stage for one night. It was very good.
Talking about that still being underground and having that underground mentality, it makes me want to ask you, earlier you were talking about coming to the States to shoot the music video for Stardust for Music Sounds Better With You, which ended up being a massive, massive global hit early on in your career. What was that experience like of sort of coming from an underground scene, making music with your friends, and then all of a sudden, fairly, early in your career, having an unexpected smash hit?
It's very hard for me to reply to this question because one thing to consider is, the Music Sounds Better With You was released on Roulé. Roulé was the label of Thomas Bangalter, and Thomas Bangalter is one half of Daft Punk. When we released the track, so very quickly it started to be popular and played everywhere on all radios, etc., etc. So it can be a bit frightening because when you're coming from the underground side of the music, but I've always felt like I've been protected by the experience of Thomas, because Thomas already has a sort of knowledge on how to deal with success, etc. So in a way, I was just happy because the track was successful, but what my decision, the decision I took at this point was, okay, forget about it. Just keep on making music, go in the studio, and that's it. And I took the decision to start my label, and that's it. I kind of, it's not that I built a wall with, but just took the simple decision to make more music, and that's it. I don't know how to explain in detail what happened. It was a long time ago.
No, of course, and I think that makes sense. And having him there, who had some experience with fame and could kind of explain it a little, I'm sure that helped as well.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, and it makes me. I mean, it seems like in general, you have a pretty steady head about this sort of thing, and that you always sort of are returning to just let's make more music. This let's keep doing the thing we like to do that seems to be working, which is a very rational kind of thing. Have you always been that way? Like in general, I guess now I'm thinking about you as a child, as a kid. Like what was the environment around you? What kind of a kid were you? Kind of have you always sort of been that focused person?
I've always been focused. I'm not the type of guy who loves to be on stage. I like to be. My natural feeling is to be in the studio and probably making music for myself or for other people, but to be in the studio. And this is why I have a huge respect for artists who love to be on stage and who love to perform and who have something amazing to offer to the crowd in terms of performance. I think it's amazing because they are able to go... to fight against shyness or I don't know any kind of problems. They have the ability to at one point to go on stage, put a dress on, and just perform. This is not something I'm very comfortable with. So I've compensated. I've made a compensation working more on the producing field and composing field. That's what I've done because I'm not the guy who loves to be on stage.
Well, and I think that's smart too. We have a lot of artists and producers who listen to this show, and I think that's a really good piece of wisdom. Is that if you're able to identify your strengths and where you really feel most comfortable, if you focus on whatever that is and really hone it into something that is unique and a special skill of yours, that's a great way to stand out in general. It's a great way to sort of find direction.
Yeah, it's a way to find a direction. It's a way to find some sort of stability. It's the downside is sometimes I regret, and I have some regrets not to be able to go on stage properly and perform properly. But we will try next year with DJ Falcon to do proper live music. Live concert. So the story is not over. I will fight against my shyness. But yeah, what I mean is, it's good to identify what's good in yourself, but and to develop this. And it's also good to fight what's bad and try to go beyond it. But it's not easy. So,
right.
That's life. It's a story of life. It's not easy.
Of course, yeah. And have you talking about your group with DJ Falcon? Have you guys performed much at all? Have you done some DJ sets and all of that since you've released music together?
Oh yes, we released music. We released this first EP on Smuggler's Way in March last year. So it's a bit more than 1 year ago. I don't know. Yeah, we did a lot of gigs together, but it's DJ gigs. It's not
not the live gigs, right?
Yeah, not the live gigs, but we did a lot. Yeah.
Well, and that must be fun. You mentioned that he's your actual cousin. Working with family. Do you come from a musical family? If you're doing this and he's doing this, are there other people in your family who have some kind of musical background?
Okay. My cousins, DJ Falcon's sister started a label and made some releases 15 years ago. But apart from that, we are not a musician family. So it's just Stefan and I who are making music as a business.
Okay. Did you know each other younger? I mean, obviously you knew each other, but how early on did you both realize that this was something you were interested in?
So that's a fun story. We knew each other because we met during family meeting, but not that many times when we were young. But in 1997, I released my first record, Vertigo, on Roulet. And then maybe 1 year later, Stefan released his first record on Roulet. Then Stefan and I, we realized that we were on the same label. I mean, we at that time, we haven't seen each other since 10 years, probably. So what is funny is it's Thomas Bangalter that reunited us through Roulet, in fact. Otherwise, we would have probably kept separate paths, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I mean, it makes me think about the idea of family in general, right? You had sort of found a musical family, or you were starting to find a musical family, and that ends up reconnecting you with your actual family, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, there is a beautiful story in all this. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that's very cool, man. And yeah, it must feel very, very. I don't know. I've never done music like on a professional level with my actual family. That must feel nice.
It does feel nice, especially it feels nice because there is a level of trust or discussion in the good way or the bad way that we can allow. I mean, we can go deep in disagreement or agreement with, and it's not that. I mean, it's quite easy to handle. So yeah, it's a good point.
It also makes me want to ask you, talking about, being in the studio and being able to argue and disagree and push and all that. For what was learning to produce music like for you? If you can, how old were you when you really started first getting into it? And also what were you hearing that was making you interested in doing it?
When I started to produce music, I don't know how to explain the situation, because I had no knowledge at all on music producing. And now, 25 years later, what I want to find back is the state of mind I had at this specific time.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the best situation. Now that I know more, sometimes I feel like it can be super dangerous because I overthink things. For instance, I start to EQ or compress too much. I want something too clean, too sounding too good, and it means nothing. What is interesting, I think, is instinct, sincerity, and at these early days of learning how to produce, these are the only factors you can deal with. It's just instinct and sincerity, because you don't have the knowledge. So you just have your ears, your fingers to turn knobs. And at one point you decide, okay, it sounds good. I don't know exactly what this is. It sounds good. Maybe there is not enough bass, or there is too much treble, but okay, let's do it. Let's press record and let's do it. So that was my state of mind at that time, dealing with a situation, trying to do something when you don't have the knowledge. And it's a very comfortable situation, in fact. It's a bit like, when you take a 6 years old kid, you give him a pen, a paper, and you ask him to draw something. Most of the time, it's going to be beautiful. And when you ask him when he's 9 years old or 10 years old, it's not that much beautiful, because it's overthought. It starts to be formal.
Right.
And I want to be the situation of the kid who's just drawing without thinking of what he's doing. This is what I'm trying to do now. And it has, in fact, nothing to do with music. It's just about relaxing and forget about all the problems, is the track going to stream enough? for
right.
to have a good income or whatever. It's just to relax and be creative. And it's also completely disconnected from what kind of gear you're using. Is it software, hardware? Is it expensive, or it's just a state of mind, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything you've figured out, any tricks or just practices you've figured out to get yourself in that state of mind more these days?
Yeah, modular synthesizer are very good to relax and open the mind, because you program your patch and suddenly you realize that there are hundreds and hundreds of happy accidents and random factors on a 15-minute takes. And it's fascinating because so you record your modular synthesizer, let's say 20 minutes, and then you listen to the take and you sample the take, and suddenly you realize that there are hundreds of loops probably in these takes. And when you recorded the take, you were just touching knobs, blah, blah, blah. You didn't knew exactly what you were doing. But now you have something recorded with something that sounds real, not thought, real. So using the modular synthesizer, I'm using it since probably 7 years now. It's good. Even if the modular synthesizer is not going to be in the final track, it's good to start the day with a session of modular synthesizer. It helps to relax.
Sure. Yeah, it gets you in that sort of playful mindset a little bit. And you just made me realize something for myself too, which is that I think for a lot of producers, when you go to the studio, you sit down for the first, part of the day, there's a pressure you feel of, okay, I have to be a genius artist now. I have to, out of my brain, I have to think of this beautiful idea. And I think what you're talking about is a great way to think about it, where you remove that. You say, I don't have to do anything. I'm just going to play around. And then later on, I'll just sort of curate what's in front of me, because, you have good taste. That's, I think, been proven, and you know what you like and you know what you don't like. So it's sort of like, okay, let's just fuck around for a little, and then later on, just see what we like. And that, I think, is such a great way to think about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a 2-stage process. Just play randomly, and then the second stage is making decision. But if you make decision at the starting point, you keep everything, because nothing can happen, in fact. Well,
because I think to go back for a second to our discussion about the French house sound and where all of that came from, to me, that it's the curation aspect of it that I think is singular about the French house sound in general, is that it's kind of, it's all loop based, right? The classic sound is all loop based, but it's almost like a fine dining experience, right? It's like, here is all of the best loops, just arranged for you artfully. And I think that is maybe another singular part of it.
Yeah. And also, what was fun with sampling with hardware sampler and manipulating the samples with your hands and knobs it goes back to the modular way of thinking. When you prepare your sample and you truncate, you loop. Most of the time, you find looping points which are very pleasant, but that you could not imagine in terms of in the first instance as a musician. These looping points are fake, weird, but very pleasant. But not any musician, composer would compose like that. So that was the good thing with sampling, because there was a lot of randomness. In fact, it's just like building music with segments, and then it's like a puzzle, and you build your own pictures with small segments, and you find odd looping points and stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, I could talk hours like that, but it's going to be esoteric and quite boring.
It's not boring to me, man. Not at all. I mean, I actually had this written down. I did want to ask you about this because when I knew we were coming to talk, I always read up on the people I'm talking to, and I look at old interviews and all of that. And I noticed in several different interviews of yours I saw throughout the years, you were talking about this idea of luck in the studio and this idea of how the best things happen by accident, and that, you were sort of trying to set up your studio and your workflow so that you would catch the most lucky moments that you could, which I think makes sense. I think people listening from what we've already said sort of understand that idea. But I wanted to ask you, about this idea of luck as an artist and a musician. Do you have, and this could be a spiritual question or a totally mechanical question, whatever it means to you, but like, what are those moments? What is happening in those lucky moments where just all of a sudden, something pops out?
These moments are very specific. It's fascinating because most of the time, these moments are super short. It can last 5 seconds, 10 seconds, but you know that it's good. All your brain, your feelings, all the lights are green. This is good. And what is amazing is that it took you like 15 seconds to do it. On the other side, sometimes you can work 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks on the mix of a track. So there is a huge distortion, very happy moments with creativity. And on the other side, sometimes you start to overthink, and sometimes luckily transform the original idea in a positive way. But if you work too much, you can destroy everything, in fact, because this magic moment is probably full of problems, but it's charming and it's hard to accept. But sometimes it's probably good to accept it as it is. Probably there is the bass is not played exactly like it should be. There is a distortion on one take, or there is some or whatever. It's not a problem. Let's keep it. Let's keep the magic and let's move forward. But it's hard to accept. It's also where it's complex. You can apply this to life. Why do we meet so few? I mean, in a lifetime, you meet probably 15 to 20 important people. It's not enough.
Yeah.
Why? We meet people all the time. So what is happening? Why do we have so few moments where the true energy and the true creativity is open, and we can everything is possible? Some very good artists, I mean, some very talented artists and gifted artists have the ability to find these creative moments very often. It's not my case. So this is why I'm talking about luck. I'm just waiting for it to fall on me, and that's it.
So it's for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's less of a kind of spiritual practice, as far as like it's not channeling something necessarily, but it's more figuring out ways to sort of unlock your own mind and your own process to just generate more of these moments that we can't necessarily explain.
For instance, I mean, but this applies to only to people who drive. I don't know if you would agree with me, but when you drive a car and there is somebody with you in the car and you're talking with him, and let's say that you're in a situation where there is a lot of traffic, it's a bit complex. You are talking with your friend, and suddenly you realize that you're driving really well, super well. it's not, you're not thinking about what you're doing. It's just, I think it's your instinct. It's just dealing with the situation. And the fact that you're talking with somebody else puts you in the instinct mode, and you're doing it amazingly well. So this is this kind of problematic that I'm trying to deal with now.
Yeah, we get in our own way, right? And it's sort of figuring out how to just move our sort of conscious brain aside to let the unconscious do what it's good at.
What it's good at it and what it has to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy you talking about making friends and meeting important people. It really is the same thing. I never thought about that, but yeah, I know people, because I'm sure you do too. You know these very charismatic people who can kind of just open up immediately and make friends very easily and all of that. And I've always found that to be an impressive quality because it's not something I can do easily. But you're sort of right. Those people probably figured out the same thing for their brain that we're talking about for music, and they can kind of just open it up. Yeah, I don't have anything more. That's just an interest. I never thought about it that way. So yeah, that's very interesting. Well, man, I'm really enjoying this conversation, but I want to make sure, is there anything else about the Uppercuts re-release, anything else about the Braxe and Falcon project, anything you're doing right now that we should mention or something we should talk a little bit more about?
I'm not sure. Now, Stefan and I, we are working on an album. We are a bit late, but we are going to lock in the studio in September and working nonstop on this. Because we want to do it. We feel like we have to do it, not for the bad reason. We have to do it because we have to feel good and deliver what we have to deliver. And so it's time to do it now. It's too early to talk more about it. So we will probably tour not that much, because touring and making music at the same time, I mean, for me, is almost impossible. So we will probably stop touring for 1 year. And you can expect some music time to time, like remixes and stuff like that, before the album is released. So that's it.
That's great. That's very exciting. And maybe just as the way to wrap all of this up, you mentioned some remixes and all of that. And you've remixed so many interesting people over the years from all over the spectrum. And I just wanted to throw a couple at you and see if you have any particular memories about those remixes or about that time, because there's an interesting mix of people. For example, what do you remember about remixing, say, I've got a list here, I'm just looking at it. Let's start with Britney Spears.
So Britney Spears, when I received the request, I was so happy because I'm a fan of Britney Spears. So I was really happy. It's one of my best memory in terms of remix. I did the remix. It took me like 4 days. I sent it to the label, said yes. But the night after, I started another remix. Like I started at 9 p.m. I've worked on it during the night. And I've told the label that I might have another remix ready. As they told me, you just have one extra night to do it. So I did my best. FedEx rang up at my door to pick up the tape. At the time, it was digital tape. It was like probably 9 a.m. So I've been working at night on this remix. It's not finished. It's 2 minutes only. And I sent it to the label and we said, okay, it's not finished, but we love it. So we release it. So I love the symbolic because I did my best. It's not finished. The label said yes. So it's good. And this version is on the Uppercut. So
That's right.
It's a very good memory.
That's right. Yeah. And there's something in that too, maybe working on a tight deadline. It makes me think about what we were just talking about as far as another way to sort of shut off the overthinking part of your brain is just I have this short amount of time and this is what it is.
That's why I love remix, because you have a deadline, and most of the time the deadline is short. It's like 2 weeks. And so if you say yes, you know that in 2 weeks you have to deliver, and it's over.
Yeah.
That's a good point for remix.
Yeah, absolutely. And for remixes, do you approach, Britney Spears versus, say, you remixing Justice, for example? Do you approach it the same way in general?
Exactly the same way. I mean, what I love with remixes is you receive the parts or the stems, and it's always very moving to listen to how the song is built and what it is made up of. And the best part, most of the time, is to listen to the acapellas. So I listen to the parts, to stems, and it's the same approach. I don't make any difference depending on who I am remixing.
That's really interesting. Do you remember anything specifically about the remix you did for Justice?
I think it was fast, smooth, and I think they love one part in the remix, and I think they played it in their live show. There is one part with I can't remember exactly, but they said, "Well, this is very good. We're going to play it live in the show." This is what I remember.
Oh, that's exciting too. Yeah, to see your music sort of recontextualized in their sort of high energy, the arena vibe of what they do. That's got to be fun too.
Yeah. But no, remix. I've done quite a lot of remix. It's a good exercise. I mean, it puts you.
There's been so many. Yeah, we don't have to list them all, but I just want to make sure people know. I mean, it's such an interesting list, from Justice and Britney Spears to Beyonce, Annie, Bjork, Jamiroquai. I mean, really, really interesting. Do you, in general, is there anything that makes you excited to do a remix, or a remix? Have you gotten offers of a remix that you were less interested in? Is there something that attracts you?
What attracts me is the challenge. I mean, what is very difficult is to receive a remix request for a house track or a club track, because the job is already done, in fact. So the more distance there is between the original and what the remix will be, the better it is. I mean, in a way, it's easier to remix a rock song than a disco song, in fact. What I love about remixing is, yes, the challenge and to deal with the situation. Let's say that the song is 80 BPM. When you're working on a remix, you're supposed to deliver a club version, so it's 120 BPM. How am I going to deal with this? It's not the same BPM, it's not the same intention, and how to make this work in a club context. So this is a challenge.
Absolutely. And as a way to bring this all the way home, it makes me wonder about the new music, Braxe and Falcon music. Are you thinking about the dance floor at this point as much as you always have? Because I think one thing that was cool to me about the new music you guys have been putting out is that it is a wider range of tempos to a certain extent, but just in general, sounds and production techniques, styles, all of that. Are you still dance floor focused, or has it broadened a bit?
It has broadened a lot, but we are already working on dance tracks, but we don't want to force ourselves, because this making dance music sounds like it's a natural movement for us. But at one point, it's gone so far in terms of producing of house music, club music, dance music. I mean, we don't know how to deal with this. We don't know how to make it sounding so good. So when we find the good formula, or when it sounds honest and sincere, and we have a proper 4 to the floor, which sounds good, we will do it. But we don't want to force ourselves to do a 4 to the floor.
What I like about the new music, and I think this is sort of constant throughout all of your work, but especially the new music, is you really do get a sense of fun. Like I feel like in some esoteric way, the fact that your enjoyment in the studio is coming out through the music, if that makes sense.
It does, and it has to be fun. And this is why we are going to work on the album. I mean, we start in September again, and we are going to do it fast because we want it to be fun. I don't want, and I think it's not relevant now to work too much or to look for something too perfect, because we start to have AI in front, and AI will deliver perfection so easily. So probably what is going to make sense in the coming years is the most human thing you can deliver. So sometimes it's full of imperfections, and this is what makes it charming. And to obtain this, you have to do it fast and to keep it natural.
I love that, man. Yeah, that's. I think that's a really fun note to leave it on, is thinking about that, because that's you can get really deep with that idea, and I like that a lot, man.
We can talk for 1 week.
Absolutely.
I'm not negative at all with AI, but it's just going to change the deal even further. So we have, now it's going to be how to react with this and how to deal with this. But I'm not negative about it.
No, of course. I mean, you said earlier that you were reflecting on how much has changed over the years, and part of that is technology. And, you know, we're here making music with technology. So if we want to keep doing that, you have to always sort of adjust to what's happening.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been so much fun. I don't want to keep you all day. I'll just ask you, there's a final question that I ask at the end of each one of these interviews. Just looking for a memory from your life, a moment from your life. It could be from any time when you were a kid, last week. It doesn't matter when.
The best memory in my life, I have 2 boys. So it's not one memory, but the best memory are when the kids are young and playing with my kids, and that's it.
I mean, that's beautiful. The end of the question is usually a memory that's tied to music in some way. Do you have, out of curiosity, since you mentioned it, are there early musical experiences raising your boys that you remember? Maybe them doing something with an instrument, or you playing a song?
No, because both my sons are not really into music. But if your question, so your full question, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, yeah, I love that you did interrupt. But yeah, it's usually sort of an impactful musical moment. It doesn't have to be a long story. It doesn't have to have a history, but just kind of something you think about every once in a while, a memory that pops into your head that has to do with music.
So it probably goes to my early childhood, and my parents came with me to a concert, a classical concert in a big venue for classical music. So it's the quality and the definition of an orchestra. I mean, how an orchestra is sounding in a music hall. So I was probably 6 or 7 years old, and this is my first memory. The other memory is when I was a teenager. It's listening to the drums of a song from Alexander O'Neill. The song is called Fake, and I was listening to the drums, and I was like, what is this? How is it made? What is happening here? And I start to understand now, because it's my job, so I know what is happening. Yeah. But I was like, wow, this is really strong. So this is my 2 memories.
I love that, man. And I think the first one with the orchestra at 6, 7 years old, and you're already thinking about not the production necessarily, but sort of how all the layers work together and analyzing what you're hearing. I mean, that tells me, man, yeah, probably you've been on this path from pretty early on.
Yeah, probably.
well, man, I really enjoyed this, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do it. I hope you had a good time.
Thanks. It was very interesting. So thanks a lot. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.